Tanzania. I am the director of Alama Architecture, formerly known as I'm also co-founder of the Tanzania Women Architects for Humanity, an NGO based here in Dar es Salaam. We are focusing more on providing decent shelters for people in need in Tanzania. And we're also working on empowering young generation of women to be part of the construction industry. And a brief history about the mentoring program. We launched in 2019, September, for the first time. And this is the time where we said and thought like, okay, we need to find a way to empower young generation of women to have more women on board. Tanzania, it's men who dominate this construction. So what we're doing with young women at the university who are graduating or they've graduated and traveling to college. So we connect to them and they work together for 1 year. They develop their own objectives and work as a peer for that is the time that we have in our program, but they can go beyond 1 year. And while we are running this program for 1 year, is that we engage them also asking and women, dialogue with women in construction is the activities that we do in the mentoring. So we use this platform to share our experience. So not only sharing our experiences, but also we want to show the women who are outside, they're out in the industry and doing a lot. So our young generation of women can learn from them and get to hear our stories. So today we have 6 amazing women from different parts of the world, all in construction industry, and they've done a lot in their space, and they're all happy to come and share their experiences with us. And some of them are mentors in our mentoring program here in TZ. But before I invite them to start to introduce themselves, I would also like to introduce Bahati. Bahati is I'll say this mentoring program is not just TAWIC. We're working with TAWIC, Tanzania Women in Construction, and we're also working with women engineers. And the 3 organizations decided to do this program together. So today, Bahati and I will be managing the conversation. So maybe Bahati, you can introduce yourself and then continue.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Just a brief introduction of myself. As Victoria said, my name is Bahati Zongo. I'm an architect. I'm also a managing partner with Artboard International. It's an architectural company. And I also do coordinate the mentorship program for women in construction. So I'll take you through as what Victoria said as well. Welcome on board.
Okay, thank you, Bahati. So maybe a bit of housekeeping, if we can all put our mic in mute. And let's get started. I want to invite our speakers today to introduce themselves and also use that time to tell us a little bit on what led your path in architecture. And maybe we start with Jacqueline and then we'll pass the mic to who's next. To Indu.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Modu. I'm an architect here in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Just a short, brief history about myself. I studied in Nelson Mandela University in Port Elizabeth, South Africa. I did both my bachelor's and my master's there, though I started a year here at RV University, and then I went out. What actually shaped or paved way towards my career here was, I think, in high school, it was the fact that I loved subjects like geography, or rather studying what is tangible or what's physical. I knew I wanted a profession that would allow me to be creative, but at the same time, kind of also embrace the nerd in me. you know? The debate never ends. Is architecture art? Is it science? Is it both? We never come to an agreement. So it's a balance of both. Growing up, I'd always say I wanted to be an international lawyer, to be quite honest. When you're young, when somebody asks you, what do you want to when you grow up, what do you want to be? It would always be international law. And then for some reason, when I got to high school, I excelled in subjects like biology, and I told myself, okay, maybe in the medicine world. And then I realized open wounds and blood and my nervous system don't gel well. It is only when university was coming along, I stumbled upon this passion for creating amazing spaces. Being able to bring my mind out and actually making it physical, and you can actually see it happening in front of your eyes. And here we are a few years later. I currently work for OGM Consultants. It's a consultancy here in Dar es Salaam. Before this, I used to work in Pretoria, South Africa, and currently loving it and wouldn't change my career to anything else in the world, to be quite honest. So karibuni sana.
Let's pass to Indy. Karibu.
Thank you, Asante. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, seeing so many faces. I want to say a little bit about myself. As Victoria said, I should introduce myself. I'm from India. I did my graduation and post-graduation both from India. Since my memory, maybe class 4, class 5, I've always wanted to be an architect. So that's how I don't know anything else. And I do, for the last 30 years, I've been doing the same thing. I moved to Dubai in 1993. And since then, we have been here. We have seen this country sort of grow and speed fast right in front of our eyes. From a very sleepy little town to become a shiny city. Good and bad, both are there. We somehow lost our human touch here, but yet we are known all over the world at the speed at which we construct. Having said that, the beauty was we got a virgin land to sort of experiment and know and sort of design for international communities rather than, and that was a big learning in itself. As far as I am concerned, I started off as an architect, worked for about 4 years in pure architecture, and then somewhere in 95 or 94, I took a break to have my son. And when I went back as a woman, I can say my only aim was to have a half-day job, you know. And I actually fumbled upon this job with the government, which anyway worked half days, and I fell in love with the interiors there. And since then, it's a combination of interiors and architecture, and this is how I am after working for 10 years in various firms. In 2004, I found my own company. It's called IR Design, and that's where I am today.
So I'd like to say thanks very much to Victoria and for inviting me to this discussion and also to be part of the kind of women in construction community, very inspiring group of women. So to give a bit of background about me, so I grew up in West Yorkshire in the UK. My dad was a builder, my mum was an artist, so maybe it was inevitable that I was to become an architect. But yeah, I did my bachelor at Sheffield University, and I was attracted to go with its sustainability. Sustainability focus, and also the kind of live project, working out in the different communities, building stuff, and that really kind of engaged me. And then once I graduated, I worked for a year in London, and yeah, so I did some self-buildings. I worked on a house, and then I moved to Copenhagen, Denmark, where I studied architecture and politics, and I got to travel a lot with my master's, working both in Bangladesh and Japan, and that kind of really got me interested in different ways of doing things, different perspectives, and also different kind of cultural craft traditions. And when I finished, I worked self-employed for about a year on different housing projects in Denmark. And then I got hired on a big housing project here in the south of Tanzania. And I moved to Mtwara in November 2018. And since then, I've been living in Mtwara, Tanzania, close to the Mozambique border. So as an architect, I'm really interested in creating both beautiful spaces, but also which work with a kind of social environmental agenda. I think this is really critical in terms of architecture and in terms of designing future spaces. So yeah, that's a bit of background about my book.
Right. Thanks, Hannah. I think we pass the mic to Karuni.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karuni Naidu. I live and work in Durban, South Africa. I run a practice. I'm a graduate from the University of Natal, KwaZulu Natal as it's called now. I completed my studies in about 1988. I am formerly an activist, so I have that background, a community, an activist during apartheid. It took me a while to study. I battled through my degree. Took me longer than most people did, and but persevered. And it took a few years to find myself and decide how I wanted my career to look like. I started practice in '96, and I joined up with two partners. So I was thrown into a large practice without any practice experience at all. And by nature, I was a very nervous student. I battled with my studies, and so practice was quite interesting. You know, I had the support of two partners when I started, and that was in '96. So we've been around for a while. I've been practicing on my own now for about 10 years. Done quite a bit of work. My work now is more in advocacy around women in architecture. In about 2015, it's about 5 years now, I initiated a group in South Africa called Women in Architecture South Africa. And I suppose our work is similar to TAWA in some manner, in some aspects. And I think the purpose of that was, you know, I had almost come to the end of my career, well, almost the end of it. And I'd learned a lot. I had mentored a lot of young architects, mostly women architects. And I could see the difference in good mentorship and the advantages that would have for young women entering the profession. So largely my work at the moment is with the South African Institute of Architects, and we have a Women in Architecture program. And we have a range of activities that we're involved in. And I was happy to meet Victoria and Priscilla 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, when I was invited to Tanzania, and it was lovely. I get great joy networking with people. So I'm very happy on this platform today to share the work that we've done. And yeah, that's about it. Otherwise, I'm still practicing, you know, but I'm trying to use my experience now that I've gained to try and give back, you know, to try and develop programs that where women can be nurtured and supported earlier in their careers, as opposed to myself, and make better choices and not waste as much time as I did, and not being as frustrated as I was when I was much younger. Thanks.
Thanks, Karuni. We pass it to Linda. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Linda Kakuru, and I'm Managing Director of Eco Design Architects in Tanzania. And I also do teach architecture program at the University of Dar es Salaam. Currently, it's a new program. It's been quite, I think, 6 years now since it started. And actually, I got the interest into this field of architecture way back when I was still young. And it all started as I like arranging stuff at home when it comes to Christmas time or those nice holidays. I was the one doing the busy job of decorating the house and all that. So I also love drawing. I do a lot of artist work. I started it at a young age. So somebody, actually my parents were like, how are you going to kind of transform this into something? Are you going to be an artist or are you going to be one? Because you're seeing you're interested into it. So like, I'm not really quite sure because when you're young, you're still, because you don't know what to do yet. You love science subjects, you love doing different things. So kind of mixing up. So actually in my long run of my education career, I have a cousin of mine. I think maybe Dr. Vicky, Shubi. This is my distant cousin. She did her architecture at Makerere University. So I used to see her doing architecture works and all that. So I was wondering what it was. She kind of told me this is in a general thing of a built environment that you have to, actually you live in a house. So how does the house come up? How do these buildings come up? So she started giving me some highlight on how these things come up. And I held into her, because I started getting the interest. So out of that, I caught up with the idea and started having the knowledge bit by bit when I was in secondary school. So it was quite easy for me to get into architecture when I got to the university, and this is where I am. So sharing the knowledge and the information that I gained from my undergraduate, and at the same time I did my postgraduate at the University of Nottingham in UK. I'm disseminating it into students via teaching. So this is where I am. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Linda.
Yeah.
Is it my turn? Hi, everyone. I'm Priscila Izar. I am, I consider myself an urban scholar first these days, and an architect and urban planner. I'm the head of the Dar es Salaam City Lab, and that's an action research platform at the Institute of Human Settlement Studies at Ardi University in Dar es Salaam. And what we do at the City Lab, which is very much related with construction, is to look at the everyday construction or production of Dar es Salaam to explain the transformation of the city and to contribute to urban policy that's more inclusive, that considers the interests, the aspirations of the residents of Dar es Salaam and their rights to live in the city that they chose and the neighborhoods that they chose. I'm from Brazil. I grew up in Brazil. I studied architecture and urban planning. That's the program. In Brazil, architecture is a 5-year course, and we graduate as architects and urban planners. We have there's downsides to that, but what's positive about that is that we have kind of like a holistic education, and we don't separate so much these two professions that I think that blending in a lot of ways, and sometimes we see them as separate. And so, but then growing up in Brazil, I also, you grow up a feminist, I guess, just by growing up there. But my interest in doing architecture, I was thinking about it to for this panel today was really in the production process, less than in the aesthetics, you know, with all due respect to that aspect of architecture. But I was really interested in the production, and that's why I went towards what we called urban planning. But really, when I graduated in São Paulo and in Brazil in the early 90s, there was a movement to recognize the rights of people living in the peripheral neighborhoods of Brazil, and to regularize what were called the informal settlements. There was a lot of discussion about the social function of the architect, and the architect being more of an interpreter of what people built, and a facilitator of the regularization of these areas, but much less in terms of the regularization of tenure, but more of a complete regularization. But then as I continue to practice very, you know, in these very exciting times, I realized that we were doing all of this exciting work, but there was kind of, you know, just beautiful plans going to the shelves and construction going on as it was, and people not achieving their rights as they were supposed to. Did a master's in international development policy. I wanted to understand the political aspects. So worked a little bit more, took some time off when my kids were very little, and did a PhD, again in planning, finance, and globalization, really trying to connect these constructions on the ground with the politics and the policies, and then ended up in Dar es Salaam and doing this work with the City Lab. Right now, I'm geographically actually in South Africa. I just left Dar es Salaam, but still working with that. And then, interesting enough, I went back to the same areas that I used to study and work in the beginning of my career, just the informal areas. But, you know, with a little bit more knowledge to interpret, to investigate what's going on the ground. And again, I think when we talk about these informal territories, women are very strong, you know, there's a strong presence of women in the neighborhoods, in the informal neighborhoods. There's sort of like the structure, what holds together these informally developed areas, either through the daily works that they do in the neighborhood, or keeping, you know, the families together, the social cohesiveness, if you want to call that. But also doing a lot of work that's not recognized. So this is part of the work that I'm trying to do today at these days. And then I'm also very passionate about teaching also to young women. I'm very happy to see some of my former students here on the panel today.
Thank you all. I'm sure all our participants now understand the panel we have today. And our main theme, we want to talk about changing perceptions and the culture in the construction industry. It's evident, and if you look at the statistics, men dominate the construction industry. Not only here in Tanzania, I think most part of Africa, maybe other parts of the world, we'll get to hear from our panel. But then we have young women studying architecture or engineering or any other field that's related to construction industry. But later on, they switch to other fields. So how can we, I'll channel this question to Jacqueline. How can we really best help our students or young generation of women to stay in the construction industry? Or maybe if you share, what are the challenges that you face, you in your practice, and how can we help them? So this goes to Jacqueline.
Thank you, Vicky. I took this question firstly and broke it down to some of the key words that kind of stood out to me. The first one was woman, if we can define it. We're all women, it's an adult female human being. And the next was the word career. Career meaning an occupation undertaken for a significant period of a person's life and with opportunities for progress. Another key word was construction for me, the process, art, or manner of building something. And construction industry is the branch of manufacture and trade based on the building, maintaining, and repairing of structures. Throughout history, it has been evident men have dominated the work and trade industry, and to date still do. And they still have a massive grip on a lot of the industries, especially or including construction. So what does this mean? Women remain naturally intimidated because it's a man's world. So if I can come to some of my personal challenges, since university, like you mentioned, the ratio of male to female was extremely and is extremely imbalanced. And it even gets worse from school. As you go higher, it gets worse. The ratio just gets less and less. And I remember up to my master's class, the girls were, you could count them. I think we were around 6. And to top it off, I think I was the only Black girl in that class. So it was like a double minority situation. And already since then, people looked down upon you simply because you're a woman. Even the conversation, casual conversation, a man can unknowingly make it seem your work is lacking simply because of the gender. But luckily, I'm a little feisty. I never accept being made invisible because my superpower is my womanhood. So nobody's gonna make me invisible ever. The other challenge I face is complete opposite, like the other spectrum. Where on site or even in the office workspace. Anyways, like I was saying, the environment we work in sometimes can become very uncomfortable for a woman simply because of a man and his unprofessionalism. And we are forced to tolerate it simply because we don't want to expose or create unnecessary drama in the work environment. There are many challenges we all face, different, simply based on our gender. So personally, I took time to kind of think like, how best can we try to help girls love this profession and not look down upon it or make it seem like it's a man's profession? First, I would think would be by changing the mindset of everyone. And when I say everyone, both men and women, from the beginning. Construction is not a man's industry, and the women before us and currently the ones that are in the industry are flourishing in their careers to the end, to retirement. Some of the big examples like Zaha did, and the women on this panel, some I didn't know from your introductions. I'm very inspired by a lot of you. That is already enough proof that a woman can flourish in this industry. Women have unique qualities that we have to take advantage of. And the best thing is, in this era, technology has changed, or rather simplified, the way we perform the various tasks in this industry. We don't need muscles anymore, we need our brains. And we have the brain. Secondly, I think the most important thing would be sticking together and helping each other. The advantage men always have over us is they will always have each other's back. For some reason, somehow, women always lack in this department. That's why platforms like this mentorship program and the likes are very important. So Vicky and the team, I am behind you guys full force. And I wish I had this type of support from my sisters when I was still in school and even after. So I think we need to emphasize on this even more. Thirdly, I think we need to expose our industry a little more. Leave alone the woman side, especially here in Tanzania, architecture is a field most people don't actually know. People will ask me, what are you? I'm an architect. What do you do? Are you like an engineer? People don't see the importance of architects at all, or our work in the construction industry. They kind of look down upon it. And it's simply because they do not know what we do. We need to let young ladies into our world and show them that construction is a fitting career for any creative, solution-oriented, a fixer, a leader, a smart and imaginative woman. You don't need to wear an overall 24/7, like the misconception we have, most people have. You don't need to look like a boy. You don't need to cut your hair. You don't need to look a certain type of way. You can literally be who you are and still work as a professional agent in the industry. Those are just some of my personal observations and experiences to date. Personally, I would say I wouldn't see myself doing anything else in life, really, besides creating some of the spaces that I love to create. So thank you.
Jacqueline. And I don't know, how is the situation in Dubai, Indu? Are you facing men dominating construction industry? Are you facing the same challenges? What are the challenges that you go through? And how best can we help our young generation of women to overcome those challenges? I'll pass that to Indu.
Thank you. So I think the challenge is the same. I often find myself as the only woman in maybe 20 or 30 people on a construction site. So I have this as a take here. I think as far as I am concerned and what I see, the profession is very glamorized. So what happens is till a design stage, you will find a lot of women perhaps in offices who produce these beautiful designs. And when it comes to implementation, you will find much lesser. And you see these end products of beautiful interiors or beautiful buildings, and then suddenly you think that, yeah, I can be the next Zaha Hadid or any of those star architects. And unfortunately, I think the practicality of the profession, where you need to dirty your hands and your feet to really understand what communities or how people perform in spaces, that is something which is really missing. I would say, as far as design is concerned, in the offices, I think there's quite a bit of balance, but I wouldn't say many women-led offices are there. The gender imbalance is generally there also. And also, I think there's a whole, this is for the youngsters. I think when you come into a profession, you have to realize it is a profession. A profession demands something out of you. You can't say, I'm going to earn money out of it. That's the difference between you go into a sort of a shop, or say I'm a sort of salesman or something like that. But this profession demands out of you, and one of the biggest things is commitment. Come hailstorm, sun, rain, I think we need to keep to our commitments, and that is not easy. That's not easy. The professionalism of that activity of being an architect is very, very important. I know a lot of people sort of say, oh, men look down upon you. Yes, I mean, they're used to it. Yeah. So something we have to do to change it. And it's only when we are strong that the other party realizes that what we can do. And I am sorry to say, at some point, Victoria, I'm very disappointed also. I'm very disappointed that the willpower and the strength to say I'm in this profession and I'm going to follow it through sometimes lacks. And that's where we start. As you go higher up in the pyramid, you see fewer and fewer women sort of reaching the top. And I think at that base level itself, the mental strength is very important. I cannot comment on Tanzania or specifically, but I can definitely say here, as well as in my home country, India, I do see a lot of women changing profession, primarily because they want to have a 9-to-5 job, or they want to have a better salary. And in India, it's very, very common, including my classmates who changed into the IT profession. Yeah. So I understand you can bring your creativity into everything, but I think it requires a commitment. This profession is requires a commitment. So I think it's the same. It's different degrees, but that's about it.
Thank you, Ingrid. It's indeed surviving in this profession. You just need those muscles to be able to to navigate within the male-dominated industry. So maybe we hear from Hannah, and as a professional woman, and you've done a lot in Tanzania and even in Denmark and in other places. And what are the strategies that you use to build that resilience and a positive culture in the workplace? I think this is something we also need to learn and be able to survive. Everyone.
Like Indu, like I'm often the only woman on the construction site, so I totally kind of see that in my day-to-day kind of work life. That's definitely something I see not just in Tanzania, but in different countries I've worked in. And it's a great question, how do we support young women kind of moving both into the profession, but then also excelling and kind of becoming directors, kind of actually starting to lead. And I did a little bit of research on this for the call, and I found around, and it's kind of the same figures in many different countries around the world, but around 20% of the licensed architects are generally women. And then you get kind of 17% of principals at architecture firms. And then only 9% of people professionally working in the construction industry are women. So that's quite shocking. And then I kind of look back, okay, well, where are these missing women? Because 50% around, generally kind of across the world are 50% of the students at architecture school and in different built environment disciplines are women. So where are these women? Why are these women missing, and where are they? Kind of, it was a big question for me, and I find this question really interesting. And I think, it seems like a bit is about pay gap. There exists a large pay gap in the industry. But then I kind of thought, okay, that's the situation today. But if we take a step back, what is this construction industry we're talking about? Because like with many industries and disciplines, it's changing really fast. So I think, for a woman to kind of be confident in this industry, she actually needs to think about what is the future of the industry. And there it gets really exciting, because I think, and I watched a lecture last week with Anupama Kundu, and I love her approach to architecture. And she's an architect that really takes a long perspective. And I think that's part of the advice I would give to young women, but to kind of think about the industry as a whole. So we're kind of seeing unprecedented shifts, not just the acceleration of different technologies, but also in ways of working. And this is kind of as a whole, often referred to as the fourth industrial revolution. So think about transport, also in robotics, the way we design, the way we build, the way we work. Long gone are kind of the days that most people produce and work with clients on physical drawings. We're working online. We're taking virtual calls, and COVID really showed us this as well. So radically different ways of working also demand kind of different career paths and work environments. And I think this is where women can really kind of step up. And I was reading this report from the World Economic Forum, which kind of describes some of the different skills for 2020 and beyond, like in this decade, that people working across industries that would need. And they mentioned problem solving, they mentioned critical thinking, they mentioned creativity, coordinating with others, and also emotional intelligence. And I thought this was a really interesting thing to reflect on as architects, that actually our industry is changing really fast, and how can we ensure that women are part of that change? And I think that I have a lot of optimism in terms of this, because I think I agree with Jacqueline, it's a cultural shift that's needed, but we're in the midst of a big cultural shift. And I think that this is a great opportunity, especially for young women, but also for women already in the industry to skill up and kind of, and to change and shape and influence the industry as we think it should be. So, I mean, the question of how to, you know, as a professional woman working in the industry, how do we support younger people? I don't have all the answers, but some things that have worked for me is, you know, mentorship. I'm part of a Women in Construction mentorship program here in Tanzania. Yeah, I'm a mentor to 2 young women, but also I have a mentor over in Denmark, and she's at a later stage in her career, and she's there to support me, and we discuss all sorts of challenges that come up. Another thing I would say is when times are good and things are going well, take a step back and think about challenges you might come up against in the next year or 2 years, and try and see that longer term perspective. And, you know, we all get stresses day to day, but to avoid any kind of, you know, dropout situation, I think it's really important to kind of see it as a marathon and not a sprint. I think, you know, architecture is something, it's a career, it's a lifelong interest, a passion. And I think to just take a step back and say, okay, you know, I've had a really tough day, I've had a tough week, how can I change things so that next month this is going to be easier for me and my team? And yeah, in terms of creating a positive environment in the workplace, I'd say, you know, support the people around you, be considerate, but also be empathetic, and listen to kind of what people you're working with are saying and the challenges they're also coming up against. So I think part of the answer is mentorship, but I'll be really interested in what other women on this call have to say as well. So.
Thanks, Hannah. Can you share the name of the architect you mentioned? Because there's a question.
Yeah, she's called Anupama Kundu. So she trained in India, and she does a lot of very interesting designs. And she's got an exhibition currently at Louisiana Gallery in Copenhagen, and she's got a few talks online. So yeah, if anyone wants a bit of inspiration, I can definitely recommend. I can put the name in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So this question goes to Karuni. Mentoring is all about networking, collaborating, supporting one another. But as women in the construction industry, how can we create those opportunities to share information or do some collaborative work and just open the door for each other? Karibu Karuni.
Thanks, Victoria. Yeah, so, you know, my approach to addressing that, you know, apart from the mentorship that I undertook within my office, you know, there's a point at which women, if they have the same issues or the same problems in industry or the profession, you know, one of the best ways to start to attend to this is to get organized, you know, and around an issue. And that's how we started our work in South Africa. You know, it was a, with me in particular, I mean, my focus of the work is looking at why are there so few Black women in architecture in South Africa. And that focus comes from just our particular situation. And the fact that that space was an exclusive space to architects, to Black architects, and then more severely to Black women architects. You know, the numbers in South Africa are don't look too good. You know, women have only joined the profession about 50 years now. If one took the statistics of a male female, you're looking at around approximately 20 female, 20% female, and around 80% men. And then if you look at the demographics of Black to white, you're looking at about 75% white architects in South Africa and 2% Black. So the Black woman then becomes the complete minority, you know. And so mentorship within that space becomes quite interesting, because you find it difficult to find sufficient numbers of women to mentor those women who particularly are looking for Black women mentors. And then compounded with that issue is the complete lack of almost complete lack of Black women entering architectural practice and tending to work for companies or work for government, and avoiding the practice issue because we know it's difficult, you know. And then in South Africa, it's a little bit more difficult because you can't access work, you can't access the industry. There's a lot of transformation that needs in Africa. So the challenge with us was to get organized first, you know, into some type of, and then to just take a scan of where we are, you know, what to choose, what's glaring, what does the data look like, where do we think there are problems, and how could we, and we did it quite quickly, and we did it quite in a not disorganized manner. We just went about it as it happened. We made decisions, but you know, generally the profession was not welcoming to women, and neither was it welcoming to Black women architects. And you know, we had to then unpack that and see where do those problems come from. You know, patriarchy in South Africa has a very different pattern to other, and our institutions, it's just very entrenched in our institutions. Our industry also is very particular. It almost wants to exclude women. And if you want to enter, there's a whole lot of obstacles that you have to deal with. To everything from qualifying, getting a job, keeping the job, given that you've got other roles to play in society, like being a mother and keeping a family together and balancing the practice issue. There's all of that. You know, we spend a lot of energy mentoring students at university, and then when they come out, they've gone and done something else, you know. And so there's that link between, you know, what happens to graduates when they come out and how can we sustain them and support them. So the mentorship at that stage, when you're a candidate and just before you practice, then becomes quite an important space where you can change a person's you can change their decision making, you can change their view on what architectural practice is. Most people are fearful of it. So we've tended to use ourselves as role models. And we profile ourselves. We've done a lot of workshopping. We have in South Africa, we have annual Women's Month in August, and it's a great women's festival, sort of a month time in South Africa. So we've encouraged all our regional institutes to hold activities in a coordinated way during Women's Month. And they're generally around mentorship, but they're also spaces where we share experiences and find ways of supporting each other, not only through mentorship, you know. Women need support in a lot of places. Women studying architecture need support. You know, that's one battle. Women coming out of study and going into either practice or employment also need to understand what are they going into. You know, and for the rest of your life, or are there other options? A lot of it is forward as mentors, and I'm talking about people my age because I'm like one of the older. You know, that women architects in South Africa are not very old. We've only been around for a while, and very few of us have practiced. So it's almost like we create a sort of a support system where everybody that practices should be responsible to mentor somebody in some way, whether they're doing it in their practice or their office, or whether it's done in an online platform, just being in touch with somebody and supporting through difficult times, etc. we've got also a lack of, we're finding as we sort of flounder around and make our way through this problem that we're trying to solve, there's this culture that needs to change. And as more women come into architecture, we just inadvertently challenge the culture that's there already. And it doesn't require being an activist or anything. Just the fact that you run a practice, that you're on site, and that you're completing your building or whatever in itself is a challenge to some people or in some spaces. There's a lot of sexual harassment. There's a lot of discrimination. There's a lot of bullying that takes place that goes unchecked, because that is the culture. It's just been like that always. So, it's also helping people to assert themselves and assert themselves positively. We have instances where men, the feedback from contractors is they love having women architects because we solve all their problems, and before they leave, before we leave site, we've sorted out everything. We sorted out the detail and we've given them a solution. So we're getting positive feedback as well, but it's a difficult space. It's not a space where you can. Where one solution fits it all. It's I think the different countries have different cultures as well. In South Africa, the patriarchal culture is strong. It's very strong, and it's so strong that it puts off a lot of our young African women that should be in our profession, and that leave, bright young women. So building support structures is quite important. And Victoria, I think you do it. Your group is doing doing that. It's about seeing people. If you see a woman architect doing the following things, then you will think, okay, that I can also do that. Those spaces are okay for me. We have a complete lack of women in leadership in South Africa. And that's just because that space is also a space which has got its own culture. And for us as women to go into those spaces, often there's also the issue of how do we go into new spaces, into leadership spaces. And I'm talking about leadership as apart from our practices, we lead in our practices, leadership as in our associations, our institutes, and all those professional bodies that we belong to, and in industry. There's also a lot of, there's some gatekeeping. There's a lot of gatekeeping there, but women need to be seen in that space as well. And it's important because those are the spaces where you can affect change and you can inform policy as well. We don't have a policy or any sort of way to deal with gender in the built environment professions in South Africa at the moment. And it's an area that needs attention, because what do you do when you have a problem that's a sexual harassment problem, for example, on site or in an office, etc.? How do you deal with that as a professional architect? And how do you make sure that people are disciplined for behaving badly and that use it as an example as well? So there's some policy. The policy space is also a space that we need to look at, the way that our professional bodies are structured as well, so that we support women entering these spaces where they haven't been before. But also mentorship in leadership is something I've started. I continue to nominate women into positions. If I see something and if I sort of match it up with a young person I know, then I immediately say, so-and-so is going to serve on that committee, or could you nominate this person for an award, etc. And those are things that we can do as a community. It's very easy, and it's very important that we do that, because if we don't, nobody else is going to do it. And the patriarchal culture, believe it or not, it is a man's world. there is a system that works within there, and it's about golf days and, you know, all of those doing business after hours, over dinner, over a drink, etc. And so there is that. There is a sort of a space that we're not allowed into. And if we're not allowed into that space, my thinking has always been, then we try and create that space for ourselves, so we can also enter that. So yeah, so a mentorship is absolutely important. How you structure it and how you make sure that it crosses also the different groupings. You know, you get women students, you get women candidate architects, you get women in practice, you get women in academia, you get women in leadership, you know. And when you mix all of them, you can do wonderful things with mentorship, you know. You can pass skills on to people and also show women different ways of being an architect other than practice. Thanks.
We still have two panelists, so we're going to listen to Linda and then Priscilla, and then we'll open to the floor if you have any question or you want to add up to what you have heard or any other suggestion. That we will open after we hear from the panelists. But if you have a burning question that you want, you can put in the chat, and then Bahati will read it after. So the question to Linda is different things at the same time. You have the ability to focus on something and pay attention to details and work long hours, just like men. So these are the skills that are also needed in the construction industry. So, but we are still lagging behind, although we have the ability. How do we embrace that superpower that we have so we are able to navigate in this construction industry?
Okay, let me start off by saying that, first of all, we are blessed for the gifts that we are given by the Almighty God, that we're able to multitask as women, and not only in the different fields. Okay, those talents that we have, we're able to use them everywhere, anywhere we are, wherever we go. So, and one of the examples, we've seen ourselves in the families, that we're able to do so many responsibilities and that we can handle them very well. And also in the jobs, if a woman is given a task, you see a woman does it better, very well, more than a man. So in this case, or these scenarios, or these talents that we're given, I think they give us a way to do them better, to perform them, or to use them in a different ways. So I can also give a task or a different example of, for example, nowadays we're seeing ourselves in different positions, like the political positions. We're seeing our women leaders in different sessions, different angles. For example, the VP of Tanzania is a vice president. We're also seeing in America at the same time. So we are coming up, the women in this channel. So we're not only in the construction industry, but in different sectors. So the people have already seen us and having different abilities, and we are capable of doing so many things based on these talents or the tasks that we're given. But the point is, we're lagging behind because we have some weaknesses. I think every woman has naturally. We're kind of feeling discriminated somehow, that we are not able to do or perform certain activities because we believe that we are weak, and we are not courageous enough to stand out, to express ourselves. And at the same time, we are lacking support. Like my previous presenters have also mentioned, they've tackled some of the points that we feel like we are lacking support to lift ourselves out, to be able to perform well in the industry. So basically, how can we embrace these, the powers that we have? First of all, a person has to realize or know what superpowers she has. And those superpowers can enable her to, you know, come out and do something. I give an example that if you've realized yourself in doing a certain activity or anything in your environment where you live in, you feel that you're able to, you know, do something, but there is that drive force that is pulling you off. You're resisting from performing it, feeling you have a fear that I might do it very bad, or I cannot do it at all, or somebody may laugh at me because I'm a woman or something like that. But the fact that you handle it very well, maybe you have a very big drive force inside you, it's driving you to do it. And once you've done it, you feel better. And like, I don't know, you're like, okay, so I've done it very well. So I've performed it very well. In fact, it's been easy. Why have I been resisting? You ask yourself so many questions in yourself. So out of that, you feel, you know, excited that, okay, why was I, you know, pulling myself off or pulling myself out from or not trying? You keep trying, and then you're like, something is resisting you. So what we have in front of us is we have a barrier that it's like a wall, you know, we're trying to push it, but there's something inside us that is resisting it. So we need to realize the superpower that we have. If you have the ability to speak, yes, speak out. If you have the ability to work on something and you feel that you're tough on it, use it. It's a tool that you're given to be able to perform or to do anything that you want to do. So I'll give an example for like an individual from the previous dialogue. Actually, she was a student. I was really amazed by her courageousness. She gave an example of like, she wasn't able to speak English. And the time when it comes for presentations, she would run off. She's an architect student, actually. So whenever it's presentation time, she would run off. So I would wonder, like, imagine a person like that, if she's not given the support, you know, held quite tight for her career. She loves the career, but, you know, she has that inferiority inside her that she cannot be able to continue doing whatever. So she would run away from the presentation, but somebody held her hand and gave her the strength, I mean, the tools that she needed to pull herself out. So regardless that she was looking at the presentation and all that, she even confirmed it. Now, even if I don't know how to speak English very well, if I'm speaking it in a broken way, I don't care, but I'm presenting right now. So she's been there, she's out there, and I'm really, really so happy about what she's been doing. And this is the kind of the superpower that you try to generate into a person. So if you have what you have inside yourself, you realize the superpowers that you have, change it, use it to help others to come out into the field so that they are noticeable. So another thing is pointing out the idea of us standing out as women. My previous presenters have also mentioned the fact that we have few of us in the construction industry, not only in the construction industry, I will say it in general, because we are needed everywhere, not only in the built environment as in the construction industry. We're needed everywhere. So people have already realized our abilities to be able to perform well, to do better, actually. And in the current trend, we've seen the recent years that women are now coming up in different areas of every different sector. So there's that the mirror, the image that is being portrayed into public or into the world, that we are no longer the people who are being discriminated from anything that is being displayed for a woman to do. So standing out is the key point. So we need to come out of the box, support each other, okay, work together, and be the people that we should represent ourselves. For example, I'll give a best example, which is we're doing right now, the platform that has been initiated by the two organizations, TAWA and Wic, in short, Women in Construction. These two organizations have established a platform to lift us women who are actually in the background, who are not noticed, because some of the architects who are women are really practicing in the field and they're doing very well, but they're not recognized, let's say Tanzania especially. So we are seeing ourselves in the dialogues right now, or maybe in the posters that are being posted in public. So somebody's like, oh, she's also an architect. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, she's also graduated. Oh, she studied architect. Oh, okay. So it's something that is noticeable in public, you know, for people to know that, okay, there are women out there. And in fact, the public, the general public, if the general public sees this, especially on the side of men, they have this thing of, okay, maybe those are women of the staff, we cannot join it. So to my perception, I feel like they're also afraid of getting into seeing or listen to what we're talking about, because maybe it's women's staff. But if someone joins the meeting and listens to what we're talking about, I think it's one dialogue that will help people, you know, aware of what we're doing, basically in general. So the point is standing out. We need to put out ourselves. And the key thing is that if you realize your superpowers, if you're good at communication skills, use it in a different way. Like if you have a job, use it in a different, if you're a good planner somewhere, stand out as a good planner. If you're, you know, a high person, or what they call nowadays slay queens, is the way they represent themselves. Yes, put it out so somebody can envision you and see you're better off. You can do it well, whatever task that you're given. So thanks to Tawa and Wic for this platform, because it's a beginning point. And most presenters have also said, because it's a platform that is helping many young women to realize themselves, to, you know, come up and see what the construction industry has for them. So thank you.
And exactly, Priscilla, one of the most important things that we need to do if we want to change perceptions and male culture in the construction industry is to support one another, lift each other up. So in your space, can you share with us what are the things that you're doing to support young generation of women to stay and hopefully to take leadership positions in the construction industry?
Yeah. Thank you, Vicky. So, you know, when I thought about this also, I think about my work as a teacher and as a researcher, and of course they go together, but a little bit different. And then also I've learned to be much more intuitive in my work and sort of like trust my instincts. So it's not as rational as it may sound. But as I was reflecting about it, I was thinking that what I try to do and teach others, you know, my students and the people that I'm working with to do, is to watch, learn, explain, and support. And then, and again, you know, I just came, it's not like I have that in my head, and I just came up with that, understanding what I've been doing. So in teaching and in doing the work, the research work that we do at the City Lab is a lot about watching what people do, more than saying, you know, let me teach you. And it's not like, let me teach you how to fish and not give you the fish, nothing like that. But it's really, let me see how you build, let me see how you study before anything else. And then learning from what the person is doing, what is coming out of it, what are the motivations, what are the desires, you know, what does the student want to get from. And so then after this watching and learning, explaining, you know, and so you make sense, right? Rather than saying that what this student or this professional or this person that live in a certain neighborhood is making doesn't make any sense. It's actually explaining the logic once you understood that, and then finally providing support, not with this culture of giving assistance, but in Portuguese you have this word, not with assistencialism. I think this exists in English, no? But actually with like giving a boost or tweaking a little bit something that's going on in the neighborhood so that things can work out. And I keep mixing up students with neighborhood because it's this work that we do that's very grounded. But now going back to the work with the students, that I think it's worth talking about it a little bit. At Ardi, and I feel very comfortable to say that it's so obvious like how this male-oriented culture. No, that most of the lectures, the immense majority of the professors are male. There's a lot of women working, but still not with professorship, and that's so. I mean, I feel very, very comfortable to say that because the university has a gender equality initiative, to address this. So actually, in the context of Tanzania, my concern with supporting women and women students and women in the construction field is because of what I saw. That's obviously a male dominated area, like our panelists are saying as well. But even at university, with the students, with the student body not being so unequal, that the positions of leadership are totally occupied by men. And I started doing this work with the students because there is, like this disempowerment of the students. On the other hand, is in both, it's male and female. So I started working to sort of like empower students and support them to trust their instinct and to trust their work and to be able to explore and not to take all of that they were taught by granted. I started doing this with both my male and my female students, and then as I continued, I sort of tended to work more with women because I was seeing this incredible difference with the students. But one of my proudest moments as a lecturer was when one of my students was defending her dissertation project. So at the 5th year of architecture, in the first semester, you design a dissertation, and then in the second semester, you do a project based on that dissertation. And it was a little different, it was a little unusual. It was a female student. She wanted to look at, it was, like a sort of like a very simple research project, but it was more research oriented than the usual architecture dissertation. And the panel, mostly male, was asking her, but kind of putting down, but why, how do you want us to believe in those assumptions? You're making too many assumptions in this project. How are you going to prove us that all of these assumptions are correct? And then she had the courage to say, well, that's what my project is about. That's why I want to research, to learn what's going on so I can tell you. And if it's different than what I'm assuming, then my dissertation is going to show that it's different as well. And I remember like feeling goosebumps, not just because she was expressing like talking like a researcher, but also because she had the courage to tell that to the teachers. And I'm getting goosebumps again, because I think it's so, those moments of like that you feel, wow, this person just grew 3 years, it was super exciting. And then I celebrate that, with my students. I call them in my room and I say it again, that it was fantastic. And it's not, and it's really, we enjoy together those moments. But then in the work that we do, then in the research that we do at the City Lab, we bring a lot, as much as we can, of the students to do a type of research that it's, translating this same work that I'm doing with my students, for example, into the informal areas of that. So there is, you know, at architecture school, at planning school, there is it's very interesting because on the one hand, we all celebrate the informal areas, the informal sector, you know, the street food and street vending there. But at the same time, there is in the school a desire to formalize these areas. So with the students working in research at the City Lab, we work to see the city as it is, you know, as I saw before, and it's same way to watch and understand what people are doing and kind of like understand the rationale. And one project that we are doing is called Women to Watch, and it's exactly addressing this disparity of gender in the construction of Dar es Salaam. And it's like, it's multi-layered. Some of you, Karuni has participated, and Victoria, in the beginning, in the design of this program. We had a big component of mentorship of students. So female, you know, female students went to the neighborhoods of Dar to look at women leaders working at the community level. So what we wanted to do was to have a mentorship, you know, young women learning from older women in the construction sector, older and more experienced, but we also wanted to bring this aspect of informality that's not necessarily considered, you know, in informal discussions. And so bringing the young women to these informal areas and see the work of those female leaders. And what we thought was, well, there will be this exchange of information, there will be this understanding of how the city is, the possibility of those young women seeing all of these other ways in which they can practice architecture in the future, promote, you know, like being like this, as I said before, this more architects more attuned to the city, to the city, how it grows. But we also now, like during this project, we saw that even with these very empowered community leaders, they also have to deal with patriarchal relations in their own environments. They are respected as women on the one hand, but on the work sites, working in construction, they are bounded by, you know, by male domination as well. And so what we are doing then is that we are trying to, you know, stir that up a little bit more, and working with our partners, you know, in NGOs, quite progressive, but kind of in some ways reproducing these patriarchal relationships, and saying, all right, now we realize that this is going on. What do we do about it? So, you know, so we're trying in a very, very small level, which is what we're able to do, to stir up these issues that are going on the one hand, but also bring together these different generations of women to support each other, but by learning how they live their everyday lives. I think that's that's what I'm, you know, I'm trying to do with my collective.
Thank you.
So we're now opening the floor to questions, comments, anything you want to share. So what you can do, you can raise your hand and you can see on the screen. Bahati will be looking at the screens, and also read at the chat if you prefer to write. So either way, so the floor is open for questions.
I see Lou, but before Lou, please excuse me for a minute. I just want to add up to what Priscilla has been saying. We at Tanzania Women in Construction, we basically deal with both women, like skilled and unskilled, because we've all been talking about architects, engineers, planners. So we also deal with the local craftsmen, like local fundis, we call them here in Tanzania. So mainly we try to encourage them and empower them to become self-reliant, like when in case one is pregnant or sick. So how do we help them when they're back home, because they depend on they're hands-on people. So how do we help them out? So we encourage them to form like cooperatives that they could come back, and I connect them with skilled architects or skilled engineers, so that they get some jobs to work as local laborers. So in case one is lagging behind, it's easier for the cooperative to fund her or to encourage her, like during her maternity leave or so. So it's kind of like we try to bring them up as well and encourage them to keep on practicing. And as well, I would also like to introduce you guys to a book. This one, it's The Moment of Lift, how empowering women changes the world. So if you can get a chance to read about it as well, it encourages, it's like, it gives us a guidance or a way through how to empower women and how we can change the world together. It's by Melinda Gates.
Oh, thank you so much. My name is Luce. I hope my lighting is clear enough. My name is Luce. I am coming from Zambia, representing Zambia, and I can see a number of female architects on this platform, which is very, very impressive. From Zambia specifically, I can see architect Mpangela, architect Wankumbu, architect Daisy, and many others that are currently sitting within the Zambia Institute of Architects Council also. It's very interesting and very encouraging to be part of a forum like this one and a meeting like this one. And I wish to commend your efforts for bringing such a meeting together. It's very inspirational also to see highlights from female architects from as far as Dubai, South Africa also, and Tanzania. And reach the blessing of His Excellency, the President said that we should look out for more females in training as well as in the practice of architecture, because as of 2019, out of 293 architects, only 11% of that are female architects. And so this has been an effort where we launched the Women in Architecture Forum in 2020. This basically looks out in our country in terms of training, those that are still undergoing training. But it has been a bit difficult to kickstart these efforts, because we're looking, the generation of architects in Zambia is not huge, especially when it comes to female architects. I can point out that even on the group at this moment, the oldest architect is architect Mpangela, who I have looked up to specifically and has mentored many. And it's been an encouragement to just see a platform like this one, and we're hoping we can collaborate a little bit more in terms of how to mentor younger architects, and also just to build resilience in the architects that have trained, that are female in our country, in Africa, and in the world at large. And you notice that even with younger females, when they are studying architecture or when they take up different offices, when a woman is being courageous or strong, but for a man, so that those disparities are ones that we're looking out for, and just trying to reach out and encourage one another in terms of how we can best complement each other efforts. But big up to you, and thank you so much for this opportunity. We're looking forward to more collaborations with Tanzania, Malawi, as well as South Africa and Dubai. Thank you so much.
We're happy to hear we have participants from Zambia, and yes, indeed, for this platform today, we were also hoping to bring in more women from different parts of the world. So that way, maybe after this, hopefully, we will expand our mentoring program and have mentors from different outside Tanzania, and even mentees can be mentored with architects in Tanzania. So we really look forward to more collaborative work and expand our horizon. Thank you. A question. I remember For me, growing up and studying architecture, started working in this field, my first job was teaching at R&D University. And when I was employed, I was the only female architect in that department. And I can tell even the young generation today, it's not an environment where you want to be, you're just surrounded with men. But a year later, then another woman was employed. So it is quite challenging until today in many parts of the industry. But one of the things that for me, I found more useful and also exposed me to different other areas than just teaching was volunteer work. So for me, I started with volunteering outside my teaching job, and then I found that was the channel for me. So I was also trying to encourage young women in my country that you have the skills, yes, you studied for 5 years. Now you're out there looking for a job, but no one knows what you can do. So if you volunteer somewhere, you will also have the platform to show your skills. But I was also met with some, I don't know, the criticism about that path if you want to grow. I remember one of the students told me like, okay, I studied for 5 years and you expect me to volunteer for free? So for her, she was very bitter and very angry, like, no, that's not what it's supposed to be. So I want to put this on the floor and see what you guys think. Do you think that is really one channel one can also showcase the skills, or maybe that's a waste of resources after studying for 5 years? What do you guys think? I see a hand from Karuni.
Yeah, I think, somebody was talking about low numbers of women and the lack of mentors. I think, I believe that if we could, encourage all women architects to understand the importance of mentoring another woman, I mean, that would be amazing. We have to do it, whether the person is physically in your office and is costing you a salary, or whether you are doing it on an online platform, just to help somebody through a difficult patch in their career. I would like to see every woman architect mentoring another, and just doing it for the right reason, whether it has a cost implication or not is apart from that. But I think, if we don't do that, we're still going to be talking about these low numbers 10, 20 years sort of down the line. If, in the different countries have different ratios of women to men. There's some countries in Northern Africa that have a large portion of women in architecture compared to men, compared to us. So, we live in a time now where we can collaborate between countries, within regions, on the continent. And, we've got online platforms as well, and we should be exploring that, It'd be really nice to have somebody mentored by somebody like Indu in Dubai. I mean, how amazing, you're studying architecture in South Africa and you've got an online connection with somebody in another country. It just expands your thinking and your horizons a lot. So I think if we could as women lead that type of thinking, I think it would go a long way.
Thank you, Karuni. I see a lot of hands. In addition to what Victoria said, okay, Linda will be next, but I remember I'm a product of Victoria as well. Like Victoria is my mentor, but I remember me joining university. It was 10 of us in our class, 10 girls. So it has never happened at R&D University. We were the first, so many girls in the class. So Victoria and I remember it was Shubi, you can remind me. They did a party for us, like a mini party, so that we don't leave. They started begging us, guys, you've been like the most class with many women, so just have a small party for you guys. So they gave us some snacks and sodas, so that just not to leave the field and run away. So Linda, please, Karibu.
Okay, I'll just chip in what you just wanted to. I wanted to speak the same thing more like that. I'm also a product of Dr. Vicky, and Bahati is also my classmate, actually in the same class. The class she's talking about, I'm also in the same class. So I can see the experience, honestly. I think she, Dr. Vicky and Dr. Shubi are the female teachers who were there by then, the only females in the department. So you can imagine 10 of us getting in and then seeing a mass number of students who are female, and they want to encourage us to be in the field. So most of them were quitting the classes. So they really held on to us by giving us the mentoring part, the mentorship part of how to handle the classes, the architecture program in general for 5 years. Because you can imagine how female are in such a cause in the university. So I'm really pleased, Dr. Vicky and Shubi, thank you so much. And that's why we're here, as Bahati is now the chairperson in the organization, and we are still practicing. But to add on what you said about volunteering, I think it can be a start off of career for anything, because I say from my experience, honestly, what is happening right now in the world, everywhere. And as I was applying, I think for my master's in any scholarship, they're asking for a section of volunteering, which part you did volunteer when you experienced, whether after your graduation or anything, anywhere. So I feel it's an important thing that somebody has to do, or maybe it's not out of your concern that you have to be commissioned for anything. It should come out of you that you can help out or give back to the community or do anything. Because if you want to achieve something or add something or add value to yourself in your life, I think there's a part that you have to look up to others as well. So as a mentor, or it could be anything. So the volunteering thing is very important in somebody's life. It will help you out and then carry out your CV at the same time, and then grow up. You can grow up in the field as well. So that's what I wanted to add on.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you. I see a hand with Hannah as well.
Yeah, so I wanted to add on to what Dr. Vicky said about volunteering. I think this is a really interesting question in terms of, when to volunteer, because the danger is, in a way, maybe some young women are locked out of the profession if they don't have the kind of resources to actually do unpaid work. So I think maybe a strategy for deciding when to volunteer is to take it on a kind of case-by-case basis and think about who is benefiting from my work. And for example, a program like this, something voluntary, is really, a worthwhile thing to volunteer for. And I feel that I've benefited from it, and also I hope that my mentees also have. But thinking, is it a company? Then I think I'd be more critical, exactly why are they asking me to volunteer? And I think that even, as you're starting in your profession, I think that it's important to kind of speak up and say, value that you have the training, and say, I really, I'm really interested to work for this company. But I'm questioning, with my kind of skill set, with my portfolio, shouldn't I be going in for a kind of starter level job? And I think that might actually get some directors to kind of stop back and say, oh yeah, she's got a point, and to be courageous and yeah. So I think in terms of volunteering, to just be critical, who is benefiting from my time, because yeah, we all have a lot to give, not just kind of those graduating, but also further up in careers. So I think, yeah, great to volunteer for the right causes. So.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you very much. And to add on to volunteering, I would also encourage my younger generation behind me, or if you're on top, but then especially for the young girls, if you see the skilled part is not taking you so well, because right now there's a tendency of employment. It's becoming very, I would say, vibrant. So it's good to see yourself into another field that you can turn, but not turn away from construction. No, if you're an architect or an engineer, you don't have to practice to be a consultant. You can also turn your back to be a contractor, to be a, like right now in Tanzania, we have the labor-based contractors. You have to be a fully contractor with a lot of capital to practice. You can start with a small capital and organize other women or other artisans, and then register yourself at the board, but as laborers, like as local laborers, and you get a lot of big jobs from the city or from the municipal levels. So it's good to see yourself into different, you don't have to stick to yourself as a practicing consultant. You can also turn yourself into becoming a contractor or someone who is into another arena, but doing the same thing like construction. So that's my tech as well. So any other hand?
Okay, so Indu was raising her hand. Karibu Indu.
A couple of things which come across. I'm just going a couple of steps back. I think the key word for everybody is self-confidence. I think to say that I'm not good enough is not a dialogue which should go into anybody's head. You might be wrong, but not good enough is not the question. I mean, you can question yourself to say that I will be better, or I can be better, or I should be better, and I can. Nobody is perfect, you know. I think the self-confidence part of it is, I think, which most of us sort of have self-doubt. Oh, should I speak? Should I not speak? If I speak, what happens? You know, don't have the fear. Second thing, I think architecture is a base profession. The undergraduate program is a very base profession. People go into so many varieties of things after doing architecture. You know, people become real estate agents because suddenly they are such, they can visualize a situation much better than other people. People become pure maybe furniture designers. The best furniture has come out from architects. You know, I think to consider, I always say this, architecture course gave us a base. It's just a foundation. To build on it to where you want to go is you. And if you go by volunteering, whether you want to say volunteering, whether you want to say internship, find the place. I mean, perhaps you need to go and intern in 3 places before you decide that, oh, this is the direction I want to go. I mean, I can say I was lucky and unlucky. I did my master's program in urban design. And when I started working in a company, I realized I actually like the smaller stuff. I don't like the bigger stuff. You know, I like the detailing of it. I like human interaction when they actually go and say, how do you touch that door handle and how does it look? How does it feel? How does that color feel? I mean, I think it takes some time. And don't be hard on yourself that I have not found this or I have not found that. But the idea of questioning is continuous. And lastly, about mentoring, I think I don't mind myself also having a mentor sometimes, but you know, it's like this, where you can actually bounce off those ideas. As a practicing architect, I can tell you some things we really don't know. I mean, I didn't know how to read a PLN statement when I came out and started practicing. First, I didn't know what was PLN statement. And when the accountant said, he put it in front of me and I said, okay, I don't understand anything. It took me a while. I didn't know how to write contracts. I didn't know, I was always wishing, is there a lawyer who can actually help me, not sort of rip me off every time I take a piece of paper, but you know, you don't need lawyers half the time, but you can always say, how should I frame this contract so that I can get my money on time? I think this sort of dialogue, which is perhaps, and here today we have an overview, but I think even very specific ideas to discuss. Should that clause be put into a contract? What happens if he doesn't pay me? Where do I go? Is there a forum where I can represent? I mean, collective we stand. If you're alone, then the guy is saying, okay, let me see, let me rip her off and see what she can do. I think the collective force is very important. And because we are online nowadays and everything is possible, I think it's a great place to say, okay, can we get help from somewhere? Thank you.
Okay, my name is Pauline and I'm a graduate quantity surveyor. And I have two questions. And the first question is, how do you deal with rejections? For example, maybe at this point where I'm a graduate and I'm struggling to get into the industry, and maybe whenever you face some people, some companies maybe, and they just tell you that we're sorry, we have no job, or they just look at you and they're like, we don't think you can, you can fit into this, maybe because you look beautiful, I don't know, maybe because they just see you're too tiny. So I mean, how do you deal with such rejections as a woman? And another question is, for you who have been experienced, I mean, you have many years of experience in the industry. How have you dealt with, for example, problems like a mistake? For example, if you're a quantity surveyor or an architect, maybe you've produced a wrong design. How do you deal with the fact that you did something wrong and maybe you've caused a lot of problems in that project? How do you deal with the fact that you did something wrong? And another thing is, yeah, I think those are my two concerns, my two questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. So anyone who's going to answer the first question before Priscilla comes in? How do you deal with rejection?
I can answer
okay.
to that. Yes.
Okay. Proceed.
Yeah, I was going to make a comment on the first issue of the of volunteering, but actually the point that I wanted to make is that it's natural of this profession to start with a number of small jobs, a combination of small jobs until you get something more permanent. I remember when I graduated, I had 3 jobs, and it wasn't this crazy world that we live now, that you need 3 jobs and you still cannot pay rent. A part-time in office, a part-time in another office, and building for a friend. But that's of thing. But that has also, but one thing that I learned now is that and that has to do with rejection, with this question of Pauline, is that rather than lose those trials as am I going to fail and I'm going to succeed or I'm going to fail in this trial that I'm going to make, you consider that your growth, you develop a proposal, you don't get that project, but you've learned, you develop a little more, and then in the next one, your proposal will be that much better. Of course, you need to put food on the table and everything, but that's when you juggle. You might do some job on the side that helps you pay rent in the beginning. But I think that one, in this issue of empowerment is also to think about what those different jobs that you're doing as a journey, as a learning process, and don't put yourself down because this is not what you studied for. about the dealing with mistakes, I'll leave for the ones that are in construction per se to respond.
Thank you, Priscilla. I see the topic is becoming very hot. Indu, please. Karuni, sorry. Karuni, please.
You know, in the just on the rejection question, you know, I've been through that in my life, so I can talk to it. But you know, where I am now, and when I look back at that, those days of like roll of drawings under your arm, ringing bells and knocking at doors and looking for a job, etc., and getting rejected. It's awful. It's absolutely awful. I mean, there is just nothing glamorous about that at all. But you know, and then you end up meeting somebody who gives you a job, you know, and it just like that's just part of your development as an architect. You're never going to ring the right bell, send the one email to the right person that's going to employ you for the rest of your life. You have to. You also have to know what you want, and it's my experience in my life was I didn't know what I wanted when I graduated. It took me 6 years to figure out that actually I wanted to practice. I hated practice. I was terrified of practice. I was terrified of failure because I had a lot of failure in my studies and my life, etc. And it's in life, I always believe it's those most difficult things, the biggest fear you have in your life. If you're able to overcome those, then you're on a roll. I mean, my choice to practice with 2 others was also based on the fact that I was absolutely nervous. I had no idea how to practice, but just having 2 other partners was like wonderful. So I'm very big on collaboration. I like working with other architects on projects. I don't do everything myself. So that's also it was also something I just used in my career to get over that fear that I was going to fail, etc. But even in practice life and later on, your practice always changes. You change the type of work you're doing, the people that work for you, your focus changes. And if you don't change, then you sort of become a dinosaur, you know? So change is good. Change is good. Rejection is also good because it challenges you, you know? It makes you think, am I on the right path? Did I really want to apply for that job with that person anyway, you know? And then a few decades later, you think, gosh, thank goodness I didn't get a job at that place. It would have been really awful because I didn't really want to be there. I was so young and I didn't know what I was doing. About making mistakes, I've learned in life that mistakes are something that you need to acknowledge, and one should not hide from it. Even with anybody in your office, if someone has made a mistake with a drawing, or I've made a mistake, or even on site, I've done something wrong, the best thing to do is to acknowledge and ask somebody to help you find a solution to it, you know. And but the worst thing is the thing not to do is to try and make excuses and explain why you think you know that you were acting right.
I just wanted to touch on Pauline's topic a little. On our side, we're in a very subjective industry, in the sense that what you design might be great for somebody, but it might be the worst design for somebody else. Beauty is the most subjective matter you would ever come through. Like, even when you're in school, you take this to this professor, he gives you a crit and it's perfect, and you go to the next one and he wants to rip it apart. So rejection is part of our industry anyways. So you kind of need to learn or have a thick layer, being able to handle situations like those. At the beginning, of course, if you started, it's gonna touch you. You're gonna wanna cry. You're gonna wanna question whether you're in the right place, or is this the path you're meant to take? And I feel most of the times you get stressed out about situations like this when you truly love something, when you truly want something. That's when you actually feel the pinch a little more. And I remember from university, you know, when you're in school, you have this misconception of, when I'm out there, I'm going to apply to this company, I'm going to have the best job out there. And once you actually go into the industry, put out your CVs and go, and you get rejected, you don't get the dream job that you actually wanted. But I think in the long run, it makes everything else worth it. When you look back, it makes it a whole lot worth it, especially if you do not give up and actually just motivate yourself even more to get to where you want to get. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on a little. So for the youngsters who are out from school, I know you might have the biggest dream out there, and your dreams are valid. Every single person's dream is valid. It's now just a matter of putting your heart into it, because I feel if you truly love something, even if you're getting the smallest amount of pay, you're still going to do it because it's your passion.
Thank you, Jackie. Anna, please continue, do it quickly because we only have 3 minutes remaining, please.
Yeah, I think Jacqueline, you basically covered what I was going to say, just about rejection. You know, architecture's great because there's no one way of doing it. And, you know, if you've got the passion behind your idea, you've got the interest, you're doing something that you love, there will be a space for you. Keep going. Don't lose your self-confidence, because that's really essential, yeah, for your future. So, but yeah, Jacqueline said it better. So.
Okay, thank you. So I'll return to Dr. Vicky to wind up, but then, as you've heard, we should all be ready to admit our mistakes and be ready to pay for the mistakes. Sometimes there's some penalties in the construction industry. I'm paying for a mistake right now for the municipal building permits, duration time. So there are a lot of mistakes, and there are a lot of ways you can pay, and you just have to admit, as Karuni said. So Dr. Vicky, if you can just wind up, but it's such a hot topic for 2 hours.
Especially if you make a mistake in the design, that the building is already built, and then you realize, oh, I oriented maybe a building on the eastern side and it's exposed to that, you can change that. But then you have to figure out how you can get solutions to that design. I also wanted to add up on the rejection. Yeah, it's something that it may put you in a position where you can feel like, okay, this is not a place for me, and you decide to go and do something else. But when you are rejected and you get an opportunity to ask why, I think it will help you to prepare and improve your applications and things like that. So in the mentoring program, we are also touching into very basic things like prepare your CV. How do you prepare your application letter? Or even when you are asked to send an email, what does that email read? Because sometimes you open someone's, you may think it's a junk email because of the name of the email that they use, so-and-so gmail.com. And then you're afraid even to open that email. So how do you represent yourself? I think those are the few things that we are also trying to teach the young generation of women on prepare for that. And it may not be fun, but it's doable. Because if we can see the role models we have today, all of you guys have reached to the level you are in today, but you went through the same journey and you're able to be up there. So for young generation, I think we can all do it. All we need is support from each other. And from today's meeting, we're also looking into expanding and look into opportunities on where we can have mentors and mentees from different places like Tanzania. So we think we'll come to South Africa, to Dubai, to Denmark, to Zambia. We want to work together and see how we can support women in this construction industry. But before we wind up, I would also like to request if we can turn on our videos, photos, so we can take a group photo.
Okay.
Thank you all very, very much, and we look forward to interact more. We'll be creating more platforms like this, and hopefully we'll build and change the perceptions that is already in the construction industry. So it has to be either 50-50 or more women. So we're working towards that. Thank you so much, and have a great week.
Thank you.